So I'm about to prepare a slab of ribs, and these ribs are ones I just purchased from a traditional grocery store. They're called Prairie Fresh, I think. Yeah, Prairie Fresh Natural. And I bought these at Foodland, I think, somewhere in a city close by. So you can find them at places like Sprouts, or you can get some pork ribs from the local farmers market or something like that. But these are just natural ribs. There's nothing added to them in terms of flavorings or injections or anything like that. So I'm going to add my own seasonings in form of a dry rub, and then we're going to put them in the oven to bake for a slow temperature. So ribs have a lot of connective tissue in there, and they just need a slow temperature to kind of help that connective tissue almost melt and dissolve so they become tender. So I've preheated my oven to 300 degrees, and I'm using it on the convection setting, but you can use it as a conventional setting as well. Anywhere between 275 to 300 is where I would go with the setting. But usually 300 for about 3 hours will do the trick for me. So we're gonna do a dry rub, and that would just be different from a wet rub. There's no wet ingredients. So I'm gonna use plenty of salt. I'm probably gonna go ahead and put a tablespoon of salt in here because it doesn't have a brine, and that just really helps enhance the flavor. I'm not putting any sauce on these ribs either. I know some people like to add extra barbecue sauce, and if you do, then that's fine. You might not want as much salt, but we just tend to eat it with a dry rub on it. Also gonna use some mustard powder or ground mustard seeds. I like this. We have some sensitivities to black pepper in my family, so I don't use black pepper often, but that is an option to add as well. I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of the mustard. Honestly, there's no formula to this dry rub really. Sometimes I add in paprika. Today I'm going to also use some cumin. I'm going to use a good bit of that. I'm going to use about a tablespoon of cumin. That's one that you would use in more abundance than the mustard anyway. So 3 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon. And then I'm going to use some garlic. I'm only going to use 1 teaspoon of garlic. I don't want too much of that in there. And I did not pull out my onion powder. So let me grab my onion powder, and I'm going to put that in there. Mix it up. It'll be a nice dry rub. You can also add in a little bit of sugar if you want to enhance that caramelization process. I don't have it with me, so I'm just going to leave it out today. Let me get my onion powder. We use so much onion powder that I just keep it in a big glass jar. So I'm going to use about 2 teaspoons of that onion powder. Again, it really doesn't matter how much you use. I can't even remember how much now. Probably about 2 tablespoons of spices total that I've added in with the 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm gonna mix it up. And these ribs just came straight out of the package. I did not dry them or pat them off or anything. And that's okay because it kind of helps the dry rub stick. But if you pat them off and you want to like spritz some oil over the top or something like that, or a little bit of extra water just to help this dry rub stick, that's okay too. I'm just gonna take about half of this in my hand and just rub it over the surface of the ribs. Get really up close and personal with these ribs. Kind of pat it down. There's no right way to do this. I tried to put in like a shaker bottle before, but it didn't do as well. So I just kind of pat it on there. And you'll see instructions sometimes when you make ribs to remove this membrane at the bottom. There's a white membrane here at the bottom that you can't really see. It's a little bit pinker. I'm gonna be honest, I'm lazy and I never touch that. I never take it off. I never know the difference. And I think it's gonna add some good nutritional value anyway. That's part of that connective tissue that's starting to dissolve when you kind of do a slow cooking. And we've never noticed an issue. So makes it super easy. I'm not fighting with trying to remove some part of the ribs that I'm not going to eat. Kind of hard to pat this in there sometimes. Just do the best you can. This is not about perfection. It's going to give some flavor to it. Honestly, if you just did some salt and pepper on these and you didn't have time for anything else, it is okay. Gets really good flavor just cooking it the way it is. Turn this back over. The main thing is I'm going to have the membrane at the bottom, and then just this roast meat part at the top. Have a little bit extra seasoning. I'll kind of put it on pat it down toward the side. You know, you probably could spray this with a little oil if you want to. These have sat out for a little bit, and they've kind of dried out on the surface. So I'm just doing the best I can. Now I've got it all over my hands. So I'm going to scrape this off and just stick it on there, right? I'm a messy cook. My family would attest to that. But these ribs are super simple. Really, like within 5 minutes, you can get them in the oven. It's easier than standing over a pan of ground beef and trying to brown that up. You fix and forget it. While it's in the oven, you can go back to work, and then you make a nice big salad and maybe some roasted potatoes to go with it, and you've got dinner. So honestly, I've been known to eat these cold. I like ribs. And when you cook them, to know that they're done, you're probably not necessarily degrees, but you're going to be able to wiggle that bone, and that it's just going to be tender. You're going to be able to wiggle the rib bones, and it's going to come apart from the meat, and you'll know that it's done. So basically, it's low and slow temperature, and do a dry rub, put it in the oven, and either enjoy it right away or refrigerate it. They would freeze well too. And then with the rib bones, we take those and we put them in an Instant Pot covered up with water and pressure cook it for about 2 hours to give to our dog. So we save all those bones, or you could use it to make a pork broth for another meal if you wanted to. You could do that same method of covering up the bones and letting them simmer to cook maybe beans in there or something, or you could cook some type of soup, like a vegetable soup with that pork bone broth base if you wanted to do that. So it's just kind of stretching that out a little bit further. But hope you enjoy. Here's to Wholesome.